The Last Sermon on Vine Street. A Story in Luminal Discourse. By Reuben White. Some sermons are not preached. They are remembered aloud by the body before the mind has time to stop them. The smoke knows. The smoke from Brother Calvin's grill rose like a prayer nobody wrote down, slow, gray-blue, bending at the waist before it disappeared into the afternoon sky and became something else entirely. Something the clouds would have to reckon with. Reverend Elias Drummond sat in a lawn chair the color of old mustard. 81 years old. Hands like carved mahogany. Eyes that had seen the hoses and the horses and the hollow expressions of men who loved cruelty more than they loved God, and called it governance. He did not know what year it was. He knew the smoke. The smoke was always the same. The councilman arrives. Councilman David Pritchett arrived in a white linen shirt and the particular smile of a man who has already spent money he has not yet stolen. He shook hands the way flags wave, quick, ceremonial, meaning nothing, satisfying everyone. The rezoning vote was Tuesday. He had the votes. He had the lawyers. He had the permits pre-signed in a drawer that smelled like ambition and old carpet. By Wednesday, Vine Street would be redesignated Mixed-Use Opportunity Zone Delta 7, and within 18 months, every shotgun house, every front porch gospel, every grandmother's rose bush would be replaced by glass condominiums nobody on this block could afford. He accepted a plate of ribs from Sister Doris and nodded at the children passing on bicycles. He was very, very good at this. The Reverend stands. Nobody asked Elias Drummond to speak. He simply stood, the way old trees stand after storms. Not dramatically, not slowly, but the way a thing stands when standing is the only verb it still remembers how to conjugate. Brothers, he said to no one and to everyone. I've been thinking about the land. Brother Calvin turned down the gospel on his portable speaker. Without knowing why. The air seemed to ask him to. They told us, Elias said, and his voice was the deep river kind, the kind that comes from underneath the words, from somewhere beneath the place where language is born. They told us the land was not ours. You remember that? They put it in the documents. They dressed it in language. Development they called it. Progress. Opportunity. He chuckled softly, a sound like water finding its way over old stones that have never moved. Same words. Different century. Same shadow wearing a new hat. Councilman Pritchett laughed politely and checked his phone. The scrambled wisdom comes. Then something shifted. The way weather shifts, the way grief shifts into something you can almost carry. The Reverend's eyes went elsewhere. Not blank. Not lost. Through. Like a man reading scripture off a wall that only he could see, a wall the rest of them would only find later, in the middle of the night, when the argument they couldn't win finally told them its real name. The door that closes on what you own is the same door that opens on what owns you. Mrs. Hernandez from 4th and Vine set down her fork. A deed is only a dream that learned to write itself down. But dreams do not die when the paper burns. They go back to the ground and wait. Pritchett's aide, a young man named Marcus who had grown up 3 blocks over, who had sold that upbringing for a salary and a badge of proximity to power, stopped typing on his tablet. His hands simply stopped. You can rezone a coordinate, the Reverend continued, each word arriving the way light arrives, having traveled farther than you realize to reach you. But you cannot rezone a soul. You cannot eminent domain a memory. The ancestors already paid the property tax. In blood. In the particular silence of people who were told their silence was consent. He paused. The afternoon held its breath. They did not sign the deed. They were the deed. What the congregation felt. Nobody shouted. Nobody raised a hand or a hymn. But something happened in the space between heartbeats, the way lightning illuminates not the sky but everything beneath it, every face, every fence post, everything that was standing there all along in the dark waiting to be seen. Old Mr. Tatum set down his fork and looked at his hands the way men look at their hands when they are remembering what those hands once refused to do. Sister Doris looked at Councilman Pritchett the way women who have buried things look at men who are still digging, with a patience that is not forgiveness and a silence that is not peace. 3 teenagers abandoned their game of spades mid-hand. Even the smoke from the grill seemed to slow, as if the air itself were listening, as if the afternoon had leaned in, as if God had pulled up a chair and was eating ribs at this barbecue like God had been here the whole time, which God had. The Reverend doesn't know. Elias Drummond sat back down in his mustard chair. He reached for his sweet tea with both hands, shaking, careful, tender with the glass the way you are tender with a thing you know is breakable in love anyway. He did not know about Tuesday's vote. He did not know the councilman's name. He did not know that his words had just dismantled. Quietly, completely, the way a house of cards is dismantled by a breeze that doesn't even know it's blowing. The entire narrative Pritchett had spent 8 months constructing. He only knew the smoke. He only knew the land. He only knew that some things are true the way water is wet. Not because you proved it in a chamber before a committee, but because everything dry eventually leans toward it, regardless. What God knew. Marcus closed his tablet. He called his mother that night. A woman who had marched beside Elias Drummond in 1968 and kept the photograph in a wooden frame above the television set. A photograph Marcus had spent years pretending not to see. He told her what the old man said. She was quiet for a long time. "That sounds right," she said finally. "That sounds exactly right." Marcus resigned by morning. The documents were leaked by Sunday. By Monday, 3 council members had reversed their positions. By Tuesday, the vote collapsed in a procedural fog that everyone in the chamber understood was something else entirely. By Wednesday, Vine Street was still Vine Street. Smoky and holy and imperfect and loud and ungentrifiably, irreducibly alive. And Reverend Elias Drummond sat on his porch in the golden hour, watching children pass on bicycles, watching the smoke rise from somewhere down the block, not remembering any of it. Not a single word. God did not need him to remember. The land did. The mouth that forgets what it said is still a vessel. The word does not need the prophet to recall the prophecy. It only needs the prophet to stand. Scrambled Wisdom, Reuben White. Style. Luminal discourse. Language born in the liminal space between silence and fire, where the forgotten and the prophetic are the same breath.